Hi everyone, my name's Chris White. I work at Riverbed, and I'm going to talk to you about the FlyScript portal, which is an open source project that we put up on GitHub a couple of months ago. And basically, it's a custom portal, a custom dashboard for pulling together metrics from various sources throughout your network. This is kind of geared towards IT, but could kind of be used for just about anything. And we've written this with Python, Django as our base, and then a lot of open source libraries, and then JavaScript for visualization. So to kind of give you a little background on what the problem space is, IT operators have this network of devices. Anything from low-level switches and routers all the way up to servers and complete services like Microsoft Exchange and Voice over IP, and they're trying to monitor all of this. And each of those things will have some kind of dashboard, usually a web UI that they can log into, and they get pretty graphs for how well is one router doing and how well is this server doing. But it's a real pain in the butt to bounce from UI to UI to keep track of just how well is the network doing as a whole. So what we're trying to do is put together this dashboard where you can pull pieces of information from each of those devices and put it up on one screen. So there's lots of tools out there that kind of do this already in various forms. Some customers have built their own. Some people are hacking this together just using HTML or SharePoint or something. The goal of our project is kind of do this in a modular fashion, so make it really easy to add ways to pull in data from new data sources, be it something in your network or just a file, and then also kind of bubble that all the way up, make it easy to do different JavaScript ways of visualizing that, and kind of abstract in the middle with actually a pandas data frame kind of sits in the middle of all this. So kind of what we're going for is starting with monitoring. Ways to pull the data off the devices, and we're using REST APIs heavily, but you could do SSH, or you could, we have some, one adapter that pulls data from a PCAP file. So whatever you want here, pull the data in, turn it into a table. Once you've got that, now you're in Python land using pandas, and then whatever custom logic you might want to put in place, you analyze that, do statistical analysis, do merging, joining of data, whatever a customer needs or whatever a user wants to do with the data. This is kind of where they would do that. And then visualize it. So take all that data out, now push it through up to JavaScript, and use whatever. We've got D3 and YUI and some Google Maps in there. And so the idea is make that really easy to take that data and visualize it, and then just now you can start to plug and play with data from here and visualize it with this over here, or swap one piece out or another. And then longer term, what we want to get to is kind of make this a complete feedback loop where now you can visualize that data, and then with a control widget, maybe make some changes to something. Because you see a spike happen here, or you see something go red, use that. Now you click a button and update a policy or make some configuration change in your network to try to make things better. So this is some of the stuff we've looked at. There's a couple open source projects. I think Carbon and Graphite is kind of the most interesting, but after like 3 hours of playing with that, I got a little frustrated. Some of these others, Nagios, you'll see is both open source, and they also have a commercial edition. So this is kind of interesting stuff. We like some of this, but none of it quite got to what we wanted to do. So this is kind of what we have today. This is using YUI. These are just very simple widgets using JavaScript and pulling data off. It's remarkably easy. I was a brand new JavaScript developer, and hooking this into Python with Django was really not that hard. So this is kind of an example of what some of this is. And the key here is that each of these widgets are independent. We're mashing up data from some data source with another data source, and then using different. We've got some Google Maps right next to YUI, all on the same page. And so just make it really easy to swap things out. Make kind of containers out of all of this. This is kind of our stack where Django is the base. We're using Django REST framework as well for a lot of this, and then various open source packages, and then pandas. We love pandas. I think if you guys haven't looked at that, play with it. You need to dedicate like 2 hours to really get your head into it the first time, but after you get over the hump, it's really pretty cool. This is kind of what this really kind of encapsulates what we're really trying to do. Is at the lowest layer, you've got your data sources producing data, and those come into a table, and the table is really a pandas data frame. So basically two-dimensional stuff, whatever columns you want to put in there. Some of those are keys, they could be strings, but by and large we're dealing with either time series data or other numbers, other statistics. And then you can now, with these analysis tables, you assign a Python hook to each one of those analysis tables and say, I just got 2 tables of data in from 2 different data sources. call this Python function, and now the user, all they have to do is write that function. And the rest is kind of all handled. And then once your function is supposed to generate a table, gives a table out, and you can either attach that to one of your UI widgets, a time series or a table, or you can also pass it along to just another analysis table to kind of keep regenerating your data. This is kind of, this demonstrates exactly what it takes to, once the data sources are and the UI widgets are defined, this is all it takes to configure a brand new report. I define a report. This is actually pulling data from a PCAP file. So I create a table called a tshark table, where tshark is the tool that's used to parse the PCAP file. And then I define 2 columns. I want the packet time, and then I want the raw payload data. So this defines table 1. And I do a second one of these tables, and then this is my analysis table, which simply pulls in those 2 tables, calls that function F1 process tables, which I'll show on the next page, and then it's supposed to generate those 3 columns of data. And then that one line at the end is what hooks that table, which was generated, to a time series widget from YUI. So the interface to the UI widgets is supposed to be very generic, so that you pass it a data frame, and everything else is encapsulated. So if you do something with D3, or you've got some other really cool JavaScript library that you want to try out, all you need to do is write that YUI or write that UI adapter and just plug it in. And this is kind of the result of what happens. This is what you get out. And for IT world, this kind of process, being able to code and then look at the data, is fantastic, because now once they've coded it once to debug a problem or monitor something, it's just it's fully coded from start to finish, and they can just click a button and refresh this and get an updated image. Let's see. Very good. So the code is up on GitHub if you want to take a look or contribute. It's still a lot of prototype stuff in there, but I think it's some pretty cool stuff that works pretty well. So up on Riverbed FlyScript. I also point out we have a Vagrant VM config. So within about 3 steps, you install VirtualBox and you install Vagrant, and then you clone that library, and you get a VM running on your laptop that has this portal up and installed and running via Apache. So it's kind of cool, and that alone is kind of a good thing to look at. So very good. Thanks.
We have a question for Chris. Jenny, come on up. Jenny, any questions, Chris? No? All right.
Cool.
Yeah? See?
The place where all these widgets are getting the data passed to the single server.
That's right. It is a single server. So all the data is pulled from the various data sources onto wherever you're running the Django server, and then from there it's passed up to your browser.
So it's a sort of hub between your sources of data and your screen.
That's right. And that in some cases that's actually beneficial, because it puts a nice authentication layer between the web browser and then getting to all your data sources.
All right. Great.